Since the outset of the conflict, President Putin and the Kremlin have come to realize that the Russian military is not as capable as previously believed. The war in Ukraine demonstrated Russia's readiness to employ direct military force to achieve political objectives in Europe, but it also revealed the country's limited skill in utilizing its military power effectively, even in nearby regions. Russia finds itself caught in a costly conflict in Ukraine, while its neighbors seize the opportunity to counterbalance its diminishing influence. European states, capitalizing on Russia's vulnerabilities, have united against it, while Putin's allies can only offer limited support. Moreover, President Putin's inability to protect Russian border cities resonates on the international stage. The attack by hundreds of soldiers from the Free Russian Legion fighting alongside Ukrainian forces heightened reactions and threats within Russia. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev stated that officials from the United Kingdom are now legitimate military targets for Moscow, in response to the UK foreign minister's remarks endorsing Ukraine's right to strike military targets on Russian soil. Medvedev, the deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, argued that the UK's provision of military aid to Ukraine equates to an undeclared war against Russia, branding the country as an eternal enemy of Moscow. Recently, the UK became the first nation to supply Ukraine with long-range cruise missiles, specifically the Storm Shadow missiles, capable of targeting Russia's sole link to annexed Crimea, the Kerch Strait Bridge. Ukrainian military officials claimed that the Storm Shadow missiles have successfully struck Russian targets. In the face of UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly's remarks supporting Ukraine's right to use force beyond its borders as self-defense, Medvedev warned that any UK public official could be considered a legitimate military target for Russia. This threat from Medvedev is not unprecedented, as he previously suggested that NATO members providing aid to Ukraine could also be considered legitimate military targets. According to the established rules of war, the armed forces of countries officially involved in a conflict are allies of the opposing country, and targets within their territories are considered legitimate military objectives. Based on this premise, Medvedev's threats seem to be grounded in legitimate arguments. He stated that legitimate military targets also include the military and political leadership of the enemy country and enemy troops that have not formally withdrawn from their armed forces. In contrast to the United Kingdom, the United States has reiterated its non-support for Ukraine's attacks on Russian soil. The White House has clarified that it provides weapons to Ukraine for self-defense and does not endorse attacks within Russia. Although Ukraine denied responsibility for the Moscow drone attacks, it is widely believed that these assaults were carried out by Ukrainian actors. The Ukrainian war has proven to be disastrous for Russia in various aspects, and President Putin risks losing everything by the war's end. Russia's continued isolation from the G7 and the expansion of sanctions have vividly exposed the severe consequences of the conflict. During the recent G7 summit, Russian officials hastily announced the complete capture of Bakhmut, criticized Ukrainian President Zelensky's speech, and attempted to conceal Russia's ineffectiveness on the global stage. Consequently, the war with Ukraine has shattered Putin's political ambitions and led to Russia's increasing isolation from the international community. For over 2 decades, President Putin and his regime have projected Russia as a resurgent nuclear power, a regional hegemon, and the successor to the Soviet Union. Alongside its Cold War-like behavior, Russia, under Putin's leadership, has also turned its attention to the Middle East and Africa, showcasing its renewed global ambitions. The Russian military, with its brutal effectiveness, played a significant role in conflicts such as Chechnya in 2000, the invasion of Georgia in 2008, and military support for the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. These engagements have resulted in high civilian casualties, bolstering Putin's reputation for ruthlessness. Russia's military might, combined with substantial military spending and nuclear arsenal modernization efforts, enabled the projection of strength domestically and internationally. However, the Ukrainian war holds fundamental importance for Russia's aspirations of empire, bringing it closer to its goals than at any point since the USSR's collapse. Since 2014, Putin's foreign policy has focused on destabilizing Ukraine and bringing it under Russian control. Yet, The war has diminished Russia's influence in post-Soviet territories and undermined the carefully constructed Kremlin narrative. The war in Ukraine has inflicted significant costs on Russia and caused substantial damage to its economy. The Kremlin failed to achieve its military objectives while facing sanctions imposed by various countries. Trade with China, India, Turkey, and several Central Asian nations helped mitigate the economic downturn and protected major Russian metropolitan areas. But this is not a sustainable solution. Russia's energy revenues and market position have declined, and the country has become increasingly reliant on China for foreign trade.